don't need a motion because this is a continuation of the dog hearing that we began 2 weeks ago. And I just remind everyone that this is the continuation of the hearing for the purposes of determining whether the dog named Dexter of 81 Greystone Lane, Carlisle, Mass. Is a dangerous dog or a nuisance dog. And in either case, to determine the appropriate remedial action to be taken, if any. So just as a reminder, we, at 2 weeks ago, we heard testimony from Mr. Beal, the complainant, and also from our Carlisle Animal Control Officer, Mr. Delano. And we agreed to continue the hearing till tonight because of the miscommunications about the timing. And so tonight is an opportunity for further testimony. I just want to make sure that Mr. Cohen, you and the Topels had a chance. We made available to you the recording of the testimony we received the last time, and we also made available to you a copy of Mr. Neal's statement. And I just want to confirm that you received those, and that if you're fine with that, then I would like to open up the hearing for additional testimony.
Right, I have a quick question about, some people, sorry, this is probably for Jenny, but last time we had our hearing, people were sworn in to give their testimony under oath. Do we need to renew that, or remind people, or do it again, or what do we do there?
Well, Mr. Cohen is an attorney, isn't sworn in, but
I
yeah, if the
understand about
Topels,
Mr. Cohen,
if
yeah.
any of the Topels want to come up and add testimony, which you're very welcome to do, then I'll swear you in first. And similarly, if there's anybody on the Zoom call that wants to offer testimony, we'll do the same thing for them. So with that, Mr. Cohen, are you ready to offer your comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And to answer the question you posed earlier, yes, we received everything. Thank you so much. We had ample opportunity to review it.
All right, good.
All right, and again, thank you for giving us this opportunity tonight. Here's how I'd like to see tonight go. This comes after watching not only our prior hearing, but the hearings that y'all had in September and October. I feel tonight could be a collaboration. I think that we can solve this problem so that everybody walks away feeling safe and secure, that they were heard, and that the likelihood of something happening again is minimal. At the same time, the results I think need to reflect the type of bites these were to the dogs. And so what concerns me is the label of dangerous. So my approach here is that I want to educate the board to the extent I can, because you're relatively new to dog hearings, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but nuisance is a viable option here. And I know that is falling on ears to say, what are you talking about? But I'm going to explain it. At the last hearing that I watched, I noticed that for the October hearing for the prior dog, there was a 7-minute segment of trying to determine, of weighing whether the dog in question there with 3 to 4 human attacks was nuisance or not. And that's healthy, that's fine. But I also noticed in the last deliberation that you had in our case, before we came in, you spent about 3 seconds on nuisance. And when it came to dangerous, it appeared to the board that dangerous is so obvious that to be a no-brainer, that there was giggling going on, like, do we even have to talk about it? But I think we do, and here's why. I think the board has broader powers under a nuisance label than a dangerous label. And I've really appreciated the analysis you've done at both hearings about this law, which is not an easy law to navigate. I'm an attorney who knows one thing, and it's this law. That's all I do. Under nuisance, well, you saw the restrictions you have under a dangerous label. You have to fit into one of these 6 categories, and number 7 is euthanasia, and clearly that's not on the table here, and it wasn't on the table for the other dog. But what you found the flaws in 140, 157, if you deem a dog dangerous, because you can either humanely restrain, there's no reference to offense and there's no reference to training. And I think here, those are 2 important things. The fencing under a nuisance order, what nuisance says is that the board can select any remedy that will ameliorate the cause of the situation. And that's been interpreted by courts to be very, very broad, unlike if you deem a dog dangerous, the limitations. So I just want to make the board aware of a trend and of these cases where nuisance is actually a more viable option. I can tell you that I am on a working group to change the law, to adjust it, and this is one of the problems with the law. But it is the law that we have to deal with right now. So as you've seen in the definition, a nuisance dog is a dog that has attacked an animal, a domestic animal or person, but such attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all of the circumstances. I don't know why the dog bit. I have my theories. Mr. Neal has his. But what we do know was there was no human target. Mr. Neal, in the first incident in July of 2020, said that he was there and that Dexter charged past him and went after his dog. The bite to Mr. Neal's hand was a result of him trying to separate the dogs. So yes, he was bit by Dexter, but he was not the intended target of Dexter. And that's a distinction that the courts make, because a dog who's human aggressive is not usually a dog that's dog aggressive. You're usually one or the other. And you have a real monster when the dog is both. We don't have that here. The second, in both instances, in the second attack too, the second attack, Mr. Neal wasn't bitten. So clearly he's not a target. And in both instances, Mr. Neal, he was able to, in the first instance, drag Dexter up a long driveway to his house and manage his 2 dogs, and he didn't get bit and the other dogs didn't get bit. In the second incident, which was witnessed by my client's son, who I believe is here tonight, Mr. Neal was, as he already testified, he's a strong guy, and we can see that. He was pummeling Dexter. I mean, he overpowered him and he was punching him and kicking him. Yet Dexter didn't respond the way you would think a dangerous dog would. He didn't attack him. And I think those are important distinctions here. Of course, the owners here are responsible. You know, the Topels, they take total accountability for what happened. And that's why they're here tonight. And that's why they're not going to get kicked out tonight, because they respect the process and they respect the rules that you've put in place. And we can already see that through the ACO's, the restraint order he put in, and then he renewed it. And now it still exists because we pushed the hearing out. There's been no violation of the restraint order. The clients have shown a respect for what this town is trying to do to keep everybody safe and at the same time allow them to keep their dog. As what I want to speak to more is what the definition says is not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all of the circumstances. So I want to make sure that by the end of tonight, you've heard all the circumstances. And this is accepting what Mr. Neal has had to say. He was the only person there in the first incident. And again, for the most part in the second incident, he was the only person there. I'm not here to challenge him about what happened, whose fault. We know the gist of it. Dog escaped yard, bit other dog, and he got bit too. And it happened twice. But what we know is after the first incident, here's what we know. We have a nuisance dog and a dangerous fence, okay? After the first incident, Mr. Topel addresses the fact that his dog got out. In fact, he was only using an e-collar. That was his fence. Now that's not that they should be taken off the market if they're going to be used for just that, to keep the public safe as the only barrier. But no pet owner knows that right away. So after the first incident, he put up a fence. It's a chain link fence. I've seen the fence. I've submitted pictures of the fence. And his yard is unique. There's some ledge in some areas. So the fence had a sort of vinyl tarpish type bottom to it. Dexter had never escaped. There's been no other incidents with any other dogs in the neighborhood, and up to 30 dogs walk by there a day still. In fact, Mr. Neal was able to walk past there 4 to 5 times a day for 2 years. And there were 2 incidents, too many, but there were only 2 incidents. But what Mr. Topol did the first time is he put in this fence. A year goes by, the dog doesn't get out. But then Dexter gets out for the August incident when where the fence comes to the ledge in the corner of the yard. Actually, I'm sorry, he got out because he was able to go through this vinyl bottom of the fence. And so what Mr. Topol did after that, and since that, and one of the reasons is for no other incidents, is he went out and got rebar at 3-foot length, and he's put them into the ground through the chain link fence. So they're in the ground more than 2 feet. Statute requires at least 2 feet if you're gonna have a fence, and they're every 1.5 feet. So Dexter, who's not a digger and not a leaper, he's never jumped over the fence, he's never dug under the fence, he cannot get out. We would invite anybody to come and see this fence, including Mr. Neal without his dog, if he wants to see that these holes have been plugged, but it's a unique backyard. Additionally, in the pictures, you'll see there's tree logs. And that's for the area where there's ledge, where you can't drive rebar into the ground. So he and his family carried these logs that have gone down around their house to secure the bottom of the fence so Dexter can't try to squeeze under. And he'll do anything he has to do to this fence to make it work. This time, I think we've captured everything. In addition, Mr. Topol does have one more thing he's doing to the fence, and that's to put in these bars at the bottom so that the bottom of the fence is also weighted down, and that's very difficult to penetrate. At the same time, and I heard talk about a pen at the last hearing you had, at the same time, he's using the e-collar to keep the dog in a fenced-in area within the fence. So the dog, Dexter, has his e-collar on, and the fence is activated. In this fence, there's a 20-foot barrier between the E-fence and the fortress fence. So that's a backup. But now if a dog comes by, Dexter can't even go up to the fence because of the e-collar. And he continues to get trained on the e-collar. We know what happened the first time. The e-collar, the battery wasn't working, and there's supposed to be a beep that warns you. Anyway, they replaced the whole mechanism. A mistake happened. So there's the fencing portion. This also, Dexter is not outside without the supervision of an adult. Mr. Topol's office, and I've been to the house, in his kitchen, look right into the yard, into the fenced-in area and the E-fenced area. Dexter's always being watched, so he's never let out there alone. But now he would have to break through the electric fence, break through the regular fence. And I think that's difficult to do. And we didn't have this kind of security for the first incident, and certainly not for the second incident, but he got closer to it. That whole thing that I just went through, you can't order it if you deem the dog dangerous. He wouldn't be compelled to have that. So he also did this voluntarily, which I think speaks to the fact that you can trust these owners. The other thing he's been doing, in addition to working on the e-collar, Dexter needs to have better recall. He needs to be trained that when he hears his name and he hears a command, he stops in place. He does that command. And all dog owners, your dog, eventually some of the training wears off. So what he's done is he's contracted with a trainer in Concord, Mass, who's going to do a 2-week day train. That means Dexter goes in the morning, comes home at night. And this trainer knows what's happened. He knows what he has to work on with Dexter. And that requires homework. And having met the Topols and some of their kids, this incident, they take it super serious. They are doing their homework. They will do their homework. Again, I don't think the training stops after 2 weeks. Training of a dog should be ongoing. Doesn't have to be every day, but it needs to be refreshed. Again, that's something they're doing voluntarily, and the board cannot compel or order under a dangerous order. The last thing is, there's been discussion about insurance and some confusion about that. Again, this is a difficult law to understand. It has a lot of vagueness to it. And what the insurance is about is simply to make sure if this dog were to get out again, is there coverage, is there personal injury coverage in case something happened? So Mr. Topol has informed me he does have coverage for that. He has specifically for the dogs are covered under his policy, Dexter, that if somebody were to get bit, or if a dog were to get bit bad enough that it required a significant payout, he has that in place. So it's basically, it's the homeowner's insurance that does not exclude having a dog covered for any type of loss. There's other type of dog bite liability insurance you could get, but he has an umbrella policy. It's significant coverage, which under nuisance, just like under dangerous, you could order or compel. Dexter is neutered, so that's sort of a moot point under either dangerous or nuisance. After getting a chance to not only read Mr. Neal's presentation, but watch it and watch the board's discussion, these are two completely different dogs, two completely different cases from what you dealt with in October and now. In October, my opinion is that the board didn't go far enough, and those owners should be absolutely thrilled that they got that result. In most cities and towns, I can tell you, I've been to 110 of them, that dog would be euthanized. So the analysis that this board did is healthy, it was proper. But I feel that without our input, your deliberation at the end of the first hearing in ours, I think it was 1 through 3, 5, and 6. It was actually, it may have been even a little bit more than was ordered for the dog in the October hearing. This is a different incident. This dog's not human aggressive. We'll get, after the first incident in July, the folks who Mr. Topol and his family adopted Dexter from came down to evaluate Dexter. What suddenly happened? Is there something wrong with his behavior? Has he changed? And also they had a behaviorist come out. And both people, especially the people who knew Dexter before, said, nothing's changed. He's the same dog. Like, does he have an injury, or did something about the transfer from New York to Massachusetts affect the dog? They didn't think it did. And we're happy to get another behavioral evaluation, somebody who looks at everything, all the incidents without my input, and just says, here's what we think happened. But Dexter, in Dexter's mind, those incidents, Dexter was provoked. Okay. None of us know how Dexter was provoked. What we do know is there's hundreds of ways that dogs can sense things that we have no idea even goes on. Okay, it can be sense, it can be the smell of a dog, the smell of people, it can be a voice, it can be what you're wearing. We don't know what was going through Dexter's mind, but we know that he didn't set out to bite a person or to kill another animal. Dexter's, none of these were kill bites. In fact, in the first incident, there was a minimal vet bill of, I think, about $100. We haven't heard any testimony about the vet bills, but it doesn't dispute the fact that something happened. But the point is, these weren't highly aggressive kill bites, which some dogs could administer. So, and then after hearing from Mr. Neal, I appreciate that he's not looking to euthanize the dog. He wants to feel comfortable and safe. I really think that the fence does that with the training, and I think it can all be accomplished under a nuisance label. So why do we care if it's nuisance or dangerous on our side? Because whatever you do will follow this dog throughout the state and throughout its life. And if you deem this dog dangerous, it cannot go to training. A dangerous dog can't be boarded and can't go to training sessions where there's other dogs. So that's a problem. A dangerous dog cannot be insured. Insurance companies will not insure a dog who's been deemed dangerous. So I feel that under all of the circumstances and everything we've seen, that while there were bites, they were not the type that even kept an animal in the hospital overnight. And I've seen plenty that keep them in for weeks or months. We see Mr. Topol right away paid Mr. Neal's his out-of-pocket medical bill from the first incident. These are engaged people in the community. They want people to feel comfortable walking by. They were friends with Mr. Neal. And as Mr. Neal said, bringing this forward probably hurts the friendship, but still, he and everybody else should feel safe to walk by. And I can tell you, other than Mr. Neal not walking by, people are walking by the house. If they weren't, you would have, at this hearing, you would have a room full of people and a Zoom full of people saying, you need to kill this dog. So I just want to focus on the fact that, you know, using the frequency here, there are 2 bites to 1 dog. There's one common denominator here. And I think that for Dexter, for the board, for the facts here, to use that one frequency and extrapolate it to all dogs and all people that Dexter's a danger to throughout the state for the rest of its life, I don't see how that connection can be made. And I just don't see how a judge would make that connection if this were to go further. No one wants it to go further. So I'm asking, and we'll present some testimony so you have it on record, that you consider deeming Dexter a nuisance dog with an order containing the 3 things that I suggested. I also want to point out one last thing. Whether you deem the dog a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog, it carries the same weight. So you have 140, 157. And I know one of you looked at 157A. I believe the chairperson did at the last hearing in October. 157A just says non-compliance of a dog owner with an order. It doesn't matter if it was a nuisance order or a dangerous order. The stakes are just as high. You can seize the dog. You could euthanize the dog. There's penalties. There can be criminal penalties. So the board doesn't lose any power or authority or control or any future power by deeming Dexter a nuisance and not a dangerous dog. And finally, and I promise that's finally, there were a lot of speculation. Well, what if it was kids? What if my wife was walking the dog? What if? Our law in this country, in our law, the dog law it can't punish future acts. It can remedy prior acts. So we're admitting, taking accountability for the prior acts, but we can't just sit here and think about every what if, or none of us would have a dog. So thank you for that uninterrupted opportunity. And unless there's any questions, I'll have Mr. Topol testify about the sequence of events that led him to how his fence has evolved into a fortress.
Anybody have anything specific to ask of Mr. Cohen? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Topol, please come on up to the microphone, and I'll need to swear you in, please. So yeah, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
Joseph Topol,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that the testimony I'm about to give
that the testimony I'm about to give
is the truth,
the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. And then
Okay.
please introduce yourself and where you live.
Joseph Topol, I live at 81 Greystone Lane in Carlisle. I've been here for 17 years.
Thank you.
Son,
Joe, you heard everything I had to say, and it's after several discussions with you and your family. Can you walk the board now? But what I had to say is in testimony. Can you provide for them, in your own words, the sequence of your evolution of your fence in the e-fence, please?
yeah, I can. So the first incident, Dexter was on an e-fence for a year, never breached it. We have 2 dogs, neither one ever breached it. One day he got out and the incident happened with Justin. Justin brought him back, cleaned him up. From that point forward, we never let him out in the e-fence again. I contracted a fence contractor. He put a fence in, it's a chain link. I don't know a lot about chain links, but apparently if you don't tie it down on the bottom very tight, it's just a fabric. The dog figured out after a year that, hey, I can push it with my nose and go under it. And he did. Second incident. Actually, think it was the day before, he was out, I got him right back, there was no problem. Next day, my son was watching him, and he just, for whatever reason, he knew there was a place he could get under the fence, and he did. And I had actually fixed the area where I thought he went under, because I could see it was disturbed with rebar, some rebar. After the second time, I went around and checked all the fence of my Max. We found loose areas, bought rebar, secured it, and there was one area we have some ledge where it drops, where you see the logs that were put there to prevent him from pushing it out. So he doesn't go up there anymore because he wears the e-collar now. So he stays far away from it. He's afraid of the e-collar, gets to the edge of the dirt. I know because I've seen some deer run through the woods, some fox, even coyote. He won't even go anywhere near the fence, and we supervise him. So he's not getting out. He's never tried to jump over it. He's never tried to dig under it. I don't, I can't answer, how he found this area, but he did find that one area to get out. So there's one last thing. I looked into these fences a little bit further, and there's actually a bottom rail you can buy that you can mount on the bottom of it and secure the bottom of the fence to it. So there's maybe an inch between the bottom rail and the ground. And that's the last thing I'm going to do. So there won't be anything coming in, won't be anything going out. That's the testimony I have to offer for you today. We got him the fence and the security.
Can you tell them, Joe, why you haven't done that last piece?
Excuse me?
Can you tell them why you haven't done that last piece with the bottom rail?
Yeah,
Because of the
so-
fence company?
Fence contractors, I just can't seem to get one. I had a guy out last week. His pricing was really high. It was $8,000 to put a bottom rail in, so it's only about 300 feet of it. So the material, I can't get all of it. You can only buy it in piecemeal right now. So I'm trying to get enough of it to at least do the areas that you can kind of see where the ledge is. The problem with the ledge is you can't put the rebar on the ledge without drilling into it with a core. So once I get that, once those are in, right now we do have some barriers there. I mean, I couldn't even get out of it. We piled it up with ledge and some logs. So it's hard to get the material, but I expect probably by springtime it'll all be done, the whole entire bottom of the fence. And again, we leave them on the e-collar as well. Which
Joe, can you just, because again, what I said about the insurance and the training is information, but it's not testimony. Can you talk about the insurance and then about the training you're going to get, please?
Yeah, so I have an umbrella liability policy, and they do cover animals, dogs, for that nature. So we have an umbrella, had it for forever. So it's liability insurance.
And it's not breed specific?
No, it's not breed specific.
It doesn't exclude any breeds?
Does not, no, they do not. They do not exclude any breeds.
Okay. And then how about the training?
Training, so not quite sure why this happened. I can tell you that we've had no issues whatsoever with him in the 2.5 years we've owned him. And we walk him twice a day, both of them. No issues. We pass people, we pass other dogs, nothing, zero. No issues at all. So I'm not quite sure what caused this. I read up on it a little bit, and like Jeremy said, it can be a smell, it could be anything. They're animals. So I did contact a dog trainer in Concord, and they have a day where you bring him for the day, and they kind of work on him. If he sees things that might attract his attention, they work on him so he doesn't get overstimulated by seeing it. And I'm getting him there by the first of the year.
And then lastly, in terms of after that training, if that trainer says, look, here's things you and your family need to work on and or go for additional training even somewhere else, is that something y'all are willing to do?
Yeah, we've had training, so I do have an understanding of animals and how they behave, because when you go to train, they do tell you, hey, they're animals, they can react certain ways, and when we walk them, we have them on a leash, a strong leash. It's a leather leash. We don't use any of the retractable ones, so be safe. Like I said, we have zero issues walking them. We pass people in our neighborhood every day. We take them to Walden, we take them to Petco. They get groomed, no issues. So, the training will probably be good. It's always good at training. It's a lot of work. We do put a lot of time into it, but you just don't know till, I guess, something like this happens, that you have to work on a specific area a little bit harder. That's where we stand right now.
I have a quick question, Roy, on your fence. Is there a gate in the fence?
There's 2 gates, but I have them locked. I have them
Locked.
bungee corded. So they can't, because, you know, you never know, right, if they push on them, it's just a fence with a latch, so we do have two, they're both latched, they're both secured, so you can't open the latch, like, so someone couldn't come in there and just leave it open.
Yeah,
And I also have a bungee cord around it, just so he can't force it. Not that he has, I've never seen him do it,
Yeah.
but just in case, just for a
Would
safety.
you put locks on?
Excuse me?
If you, would you put an actual lock on the gate if you needed to?
Yeah, I haven't put padlocks on it yet, but what I do have is a nylon tie on it, so that you can't, I mean, unless you really, really force it, you're not breaking
Oh,
the tie.
okay.
The lock is fine, so I have
Yeah.
no problem with the lock on it.
and so when you, let Dexter outside into the fenced-in area or bring him back into the house, are you always doing that from some kind of door that goes from the yard into the house as opposed to using the gates?
Correct.
Yeah.
Back door goes right to the deck goes right to the yard's fenced, so he never gets past that. And then, like I said, whenever we walk him, it's always on leashes, both of them, and there's been zero issues walking them, no matter
Okay.
where we take them.
Any other questions from anyone here on the specific testimony? No, okay.
Thank you,
And
Joe.
would anyone else from the Topol family like to come up and say something?
After talking to them today, everybody always wants to say something, right? But I feel like we gave you everything that we gave you all the information that we'd like for you to know. Of course, you can ask questions of anything, but I think we can. I don't think we have to go to midnight on this one.
Okay.
Thank
Is there anyone else on the Zoom call that wanted to offer testimony tonight? Or Mr. Delano also? Yeah. Mr. Neal, is there anything that you, any additional testimony you want to offer tonight? I should probably swear you in too if you'd like to say something.
I think I was sworn in last time. Does it not carry
Oh,
over?
that carries over. Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
I would just like to say a couple of things. The first thing I want to say is that, you know, I really feel that Joe and Maura acted extremely appropriately after the first attack, and I would never say anything other than that. I don't want to cause any further issues between Joe Maura and my family, and I know that it's, you know, this has the you know, the chance of really being a disruptive and unpleasant event to go through. I think Mr. Cohen has made some extremely well-made and very cogent points, and I think that Joe and Maura have taken great steps in securing the property as well. And I think that that's highly commendable on their part. I wanted to just say, I never hit, punched, or kicked the dog. And, you know, that's not the way that I managed to force it off. I actually grabbed its collar, which is how I got bitten in the first place. And I tightened the collar around its neck to try and get it to release and pull it off. So that's a little different. However, I don't want to go down this road. So if, with the remedies that Joe and Maura have put in my board feels that a nuisance finding is appropriate, I think that my family and I would be happy with that. So I agree with Mr. Cohen. I think we can come to from my perspective, I think we can come to a mutually acceptable answer here. And I think it would be better for our neighborhood if we went down that road.
All right. Thank you. So if there's no additional testimony that anyone would like to offer, I'm going to close this part of the hearing, and then we will begin our deliberations. All right, so you can have a seat. And so we have you know, the testimony that we heard 2 weeks ago, and then we have the testimony we've heard tonight. We have some pictures from the Topol family of the fencing that they have at their house. And I think we sort of we've identified the sort of relevant testimony and documents that we have received. So with that, I will close the hearing, and I'd like a motion to do so.
I move to close the hearing.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now it's our time to deliberate, and as we've heard, there are two options for us in terms of how we might categorize Dexter. And I'm wondering, I think we've heard, you know, very clear statements and testimony about a case for describing Dexter as a nuisance dog. Does anybody want to comment on whether, maybe, should we go through the nuisance dog definition, or do people feel ready to decide whether or not we want to categorize Dexter as a nuisance dog? And then if we say no, we're not going to designate him as a nuisance dog, then we would go on to the dangerous dog designation. Does that sound right?
Okay.
I don't think we can read it.
No, we've had it.
And Mr. Cohen went through it too. I
um,
think we all got an education.
We have it.
Yeah, we have it in our packet, the information about a nuisance dog. Let me ask, Jenny Merrill is our town council. Do you have any comment you want to make as we begin this deliberation?
No, I mean, I think you guys are doing fine. If you feel you want to, do you want me to review the definition of a nuisance dog? I mean,
No, I don't think so. I think we've learned that pretty well over the course of the last several select
I want to
board
make,
meetings.
I'd like to make one comment before we start to Mr. Cohen's initial comment, which was accurate, that we spent a long time deliberating the nuisance versus dangerous the first time and no time the second time. The reason we spent a long time the first time was because we didn't really understand the statute. We had to educate ourselves. So I'm not going to make a comment about the now time, but that was why we took a long time the first time. It was, I would agree, and we reached that conclusion. I think it was obvious to us after we learned it that that dog was a dangerous dog. I'm not commenting, you know, this one, now we're talking about this. That's the reason.
Thank you. While you didn't owe me an explanation, I appreciate
Well,
where you're
sorry,
coming from.
Mr. Cohen, we're just getting into our deliberations here, but if we do have a question for anybody, we will ask it. So, anybody want to make a comment or ready to make a motion?
No, I just, you know, I actually, agree with Mr. Cohen. You know, it's a completely different situation than the
Yes,
first time. You
no
know,
question.
and, it was actually, it's nice that you guys all came, it's nice that you guys actually all came this time. Because we got a, you know, kind of a more full picture of exactly what you've done. You know, I think the additional steps, I think that says a lot, you know, I mean, just look at the owners versus second, right? You know, you're remorseful with what happened. You were trying to implement things that, you know, will prevent this from happening again. You're doing the training. I mean, no yelling, you know. So yeah, you know, I mean, I actually, if you want me to say, I agree with the nuisance labeling it, and I think it was important to point out, because I didn't really understand this, is that, yeah, it does hold the same, you know, kind of, weight, yeah, exactly, that we, you know, that, you know, we can do something if this does happen again. I mean, I honestly, it doesn't seem to me like there will be anything, but.
Yeah. I agree, and I appreciate Mr. Cohen's presentation. I wish we'd had these cases reversed. We would have been a lot smarter. But yeah, definition of an expert if somebody's already made that mistake, so, I think this is a nuisance dog. I know I have it in my neighborhood, there's a dog's a lovely dog, and I know, from somebody else who walks around our neighborhood, that she attacks that dog. She doesn't attack my dog, I walk back and forth several times, and, so I know it, dogs are all crazy, so,
Maybe the dog's just afraid of you.
that's possible. That's possible. But anyway, yeah, and I also appreciate that you've basically double fenced and that you are, you know, trying to secure that perimeter and, you know, even though your dog's 20 feet away from the perimeter even, because, but the day that the, you know, the day that the battery dies, you never know until it's died and they've gone past it. So that's, I think you guys have shown some very good faith.
Yes, I'd also like to echo, first of all, I do appreciate Mr. Cohen's analysis, because I had not appreciated
Yeah.
that you have that option and that your remedies are broader. So it is a very poorly written statute.
It
I'm
is.
glad. I hope you're successful in your endeavors to reform it. And I am a personal proponent of training. My dogs are trained. I was running them 2 weeks ago. The battery ran out. I wasn't aware of it, and the retailer, but they're trained, like they listen to me. So training is good, and I was disappointed that the remedies for dangerous did not include training, because I believe that that is a good remedy.
Yeah.
The thing that and I echo everyone's comments that the Topals have been very responsive and responsible. The thing that carries the most weight with me, actually, is Mr. Neal's most recent reply.
Yeah.
That he also supports that, because he is essentially the victim. And if he supports it, then certainly I support the nuisance dog classification.
And the one thing I'd add is that I, just as the chair of this meeting and the previous hearings, I really appreciate the tone of tonight's conversation and the effort to, you know, recognize or accept responsibility for what happened, and also to work cooperatively to come up with a solution that works for everyone. And I appreciate Mr. Neal's statement as well. So I think I would also support designating Dexter as a nuisance. So sounds like we're in agreement, and that we should go ahead and someone should make a motion to that effect.
And do we need to specify any remedies?
Well, that comes next.
Okay,
First,
all right,
we
so
make that-
I move that we specify Dexter as a nuisance dog.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so the remedies then, I mean, some of them, the topos you have already identified, so maybe we'll just specify, though, that the maintenance of the fence and the e-collar perimeter inside that, the training that you've discussed, and I guess maintenance of the insurance policy that you already have in effect. Is there anything else that we want to include?
I can't think of anything.
All right, so though, I guess we have to take a vote on those three remedies. So I'd like a motion to that effect, please.
You're waiting for me? Okay. I move that, yeah, so moved, how about that?
Okay. And
Well, then
second,
I guess I'll second.
all right, so Luke seconded. Any more discussion? Jenny, Ms. Merrill, do we need to say anything? Are we clear enough in what we've described as the remedies?
Yep, yeah, I got it.
Good. All right, thank you. All right, so let's take a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. So what will happen from here is that Ms. Merrill will write up the results of the hearing, and then we'll, it'll come to us, I'll sign it, and then it'll be given to you, a copy to you and a copy to Mr. Neal. And we're glad that we've worked out
Yeah.
a solution satisfactory to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And sorry for the mix-up 2 weeks ago.
yeah, 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 all right.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
right.
And I also
Thank
need
you,
to say,
Dawn.
thank you, Mr. Goddard, because he owned what may have been a mistake or a typo, and he got me everything I needed. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, thanks, Ms. Merrill. Good night.